you all for being here. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for sticking it out with me. Let me do the formal introduction. Thank you for attending this weekly virtual training from AFM. AFM volunteers are happy to provide this training to you. You are encouraged to share what you learned from this training with your colleagues. This training is provided free of charge and includes a certificate of attendance to those who participate in 70% of the training, which is usually 45 minutes. The training will be recorded, and when possible, recordings will be available AFM's YouTube channel for future viewing. At the end of the training, AFM's Jose won't be here. Let's see. We're not going to do the tea time afterwards. At the end, please make sure to mute your microphone. If you have questions, raise your hand to ask or type it in the charts, as I will be checking the chat throughout the training. So I'm going to be juggling back and forth, and so here we go. Thanks for being here formally. This is me, my quick biography. I think some of you have probably recognized me from previous classes. Here's me in my firefighter garb. Here's me in my other professional garb. I am a rabbi. Some of you know that. And here's me in my other passion, which is canoeing. So I'm going to talk about VEIS. VEIS is a tactic for searching specific areas where there is both a probability of a victim and survivable conditions. So probability of victims means you are told someone is likely inside the building, or you have other reasons to believe someone's inside. For example, it's a structure where there's cars and children's toys outside. It's the middle of the night, and nobody is telling you that they're not inside. Survivable conditions means the room has not been impinged by fire, and there's some other signs for that, which we'll talk about. But basically, it means there might be a space where someone could be surviving what's going on in the building. So in this class today, you'll be able to identify each of the steps of VEIS, understand the importance of the sequence of each of the 4 components, learn how to do each of these, and learn when to use VEIS. Just want to remind you that in the fire service and as first responders, we risk a lot to save a lot, but we risk little to save little. And we have to remember we risk nothing to save nothing. VEIS, this is what it stands for. You vent, you enter, you isolate, and you search. Vent means that you open up the space to create airflow. And as you know from fire dynamics, air added to fire makes the fire bigger. So V is the vent, but you have to vent if you're entering the space. You have to open a window or you have to open a door. And so when you do that, you automatically change the fire dynamics by bringing in the oxygen. Enter, how you get in, it's getting into the room. And then you isolate. You isolate, what that really means is that you isolate the space that you're in. So there's 2 things that you can do that when you isolate space. First is when you go in, you go across the room as fast as possible and close the door into the room from the inside if the door is open. And the other isolate is to close the space behind you that you entered into in order to reduce the airflow. Reducing the oxygen keeps the fire lower. And then you begin your search. That's what the S is, VEIS. Some of you may have learned in the past that it's just VES, vent, enter, and search. But over the years, here anyway, in the States, we've begun, it's become important to add in the isolate in order to make it clear that you have to cut off the oxygen flow to the room. So before you do anything, before you enter into a room, before you open a window, before you do anything on the fire ground, you need to do a size up. A quick size up is always warranted. Ideally, you should have a 360-degree size up. Sometimes you have to have someone else doing that for you while you move to prepare to do a vent and enter for because there's survivable space that you want to get to as soon as possible. But when you do the size up, here's what you're looking for. Rescue profile. What are we saving? Look, there's nothing heroic about saving property, about saving televisions or books or clothing. There's nothing heroic about that. So there's no reason to work hard to get inside a burning building that in a dangerous situation when there's no people involved. So what are we looking for? What are we saving when we're doing the size up? The second thing you need to be taking care of, looking after, is the building profile. What are the conditions that exist that will enable or inhibit our action at this particular case? What kind of building is it? You have a lot of different structures in your home fire districts. Some are more fire resistant than others. Some are multi-story. So what's the building profile? How secure is it? How safe is it? Can you get in there? Fire profile. Another way of saying fire profile is to read the smoke. What's the fire doing? These are all things you need to assess before you go in to try and execute a rescue. By the way, keep in mind that just because fire is venting from a window doesn't mean that there can't be survivable space in the room. So it's important to do the full assessment, size up, before you go in. Okay, let's talk about venting. As I said, you open the window and okay. I'm trying. I responded to your request for the live transcription. So you vent. You open the window. Before you take out the window or you open it, announce to who's ever with you that you're about to do this. You need to work in a coordinated fashion. Remember, when you open the window, when you vent, you're creating a flow path for the fire. Depending on how well the building is sealed will determine what happens when you take the window out with your tool. Taking out a window in a building that has already self-ventilated will have less of an effect than taking out a window on a tightly sealed building. In other words, if your building is already vented, if your room is already vented, you're opening the window is not going to make as big a difference. But also remember, when you open the window, depending on the venting space, you can create two kinds of flows. You get a flow of cool air coming in and hot air coming out the same window. So your second has to be aware and ready for what you're about to do. And you also have to be prepared to move quickly. When venting the window, time is of the essence. The clock has started. You should be prepared to enter the room as soon as the glass shards are cleared from the bottom of the sash. Remove as much of that glass as possible so that in the event that you have to return through that window, you're not going to be dragging a victim over broken glass or yourself. At the window, as you begin your entering, look for your victims. If you can see them, great. Sometimes they'll be right below the window because they're trying to get out. Also, look for where the door is because you're going to want to make a beeline to the door. And then once you get inside the room, you're going to need to remember to search behind furniture or other obstacles that could hide the body. So that's step number one, venting. I'm going to pause. There's some chats to see if there's okay, not for me. So you vented, and now I don't know what kinds of tools you carry on your fire trucks, what you have at hand, but these are typical tools that we use here in our country and pretty much in North America. The one I'm pointing to now, it's called a Halligan. It comes in different lengths. It's a nice heavy tool, multi-purpose use. And the other one's known as a pike pole. Adelino, I see you have your hand up. You have a question.
Yes, sir. I just want to know, is this entry through the window to go and rescue the victim, or is it ventilation, and then do you have to vent first?
This is the purpose for this is the intent is for searching survivable space. So if you have no reason to believe there's someone in this particular space for whatever reason, either you've been told there's no one in the structure, the facility, or the house, or it's too consumed with fire, but it has not yet self-vented, then you do not want to vent it. You do not want it to make the fire bigger. So this is a technique for use if you believe, if you assess two things. One, there's survivable space, and two, there's a possible victims in that space. That answer your question?
I'm not sure, because the moment you open the window, are you gonna close the door in order to vent? Because the moment you open the window, if the house, if the building is burning, isn't it gonna create oxygen inside the building and then make the fire to be more?
Yeah, it will, and that's when I get to the isolate part, I'll address that a little bit more. But yes, absolutely. Once you open the window, once you vent it, however you open up that window, you are creating a draft. You're creating an inflow of oxygen, and at the same time, the heated air is going to go out. So you're creating a two-level airflows. In comes cold air, out comes the hot air. But you have to do that in order to get inside the room. That's why the isolate, the part about closing the door on the opposite side of the room as soon as possible is important, because that's going to reduce the flow of hot air into the room. Because remember, that the hot air under pressure wants to go out, and it's going to look for whatever place it can to escape. So you want to cut off that pathway by closing the door on the opposite side. But you have to open the window to go inside to do the rescue. So that's why it's critical to assess there's survivable space, and you have reasons to believe that there's a victim inside. And that's why you have to also go fast once you get going. Let's move on. And you enter the room. Okay. One of the most important things you need to remember when you enter the room is that you need to test the floor below you to make sure it's stable and solid. But even more importantly, you need to make sure that there's not a victim right underneath the window. You don't want to drop in on the victim. So when you tap the floor to make sure it's stable, be careful not to pound it too hard so that you end up hurting somebody. So you get in as fast as you can. And I don't know if you have access to thermal imaging cameras, but they could be really helpful for helping to find victims. But you get into the room as quickly as possible. There's different ways to enter the room. Given the bit of shortness in time, I'm gonna go fast forward. Not gonna really spend much time on the different ways, but I'll just show a couple of quick pictures here. These are head entries. Notice how his feet are hooked against the windows. If he realizes that, the floor is not stable or he's got to pull out, he's not falling in head first and just tumbling into him and possibly knocking his air off. Here's another entry, feet first. I'm going to just keep on moving. There's a video for here. I think I'm going to skip it for right now. I may come back to it just because we started late. And so you vented, you entered the room, and we now teach here in North America that no matter what, once you get your feet on the ground, or you're either on your knees or on your feet, what you do is you crawl as directly, as fast as possible to the interior door to make sure it's closed. This goes back to Lino's question about the venting and creating the airflow. This is going to reduce the airflow if that door is open. If you already know it's closed, that's a good thing, but chances are it'll be open. So even if there's a victim that you see, we now teach you go straight to the door first, close it, because you're going to buy yourself and the victim time if you do that. And you've got the protective gear on, so you're in a better position than the victim is. So you want to create as healthy or safe environment for them as possible. Here's a couple of pictures that show the difference in rooms when the door is closed and the door is not open. In photo 1, the interior of this old wood frame house, the same. This is photo 1, where my cursor is. The door. Well, I'm sorry. This one was number 1 is this side. The door was open. Look at the damage in there. Look how much damage was in there compared to door 2, room 2, where the door was closed. Side by side rooms. This door was open. This door was closed. It makes a huge difference if the door is closed. That's why, even though the building can look like it's fully involved, it's possible there can be occupants or victims in a room where they're surviving for now because the door is closed. Move on to the next one. Here's another picture. Same thing. The room on this room here where my cursor is, the bright room, the door was closed. The other side, the door was open. Huge difference. That's why we want to close that door as fast as possible. By the way, as a safety tip for people in your community, it's important to sleep with the bedroom door closed, because at night, if there's a fire and the door is open, the room is going to fill with fumes. Fumes are going to intoxicate and poison the victim so that they won't be able to, pay attention and get themselves out, and then or close the door. And then next thing you know, the room is engulfed with fire. But if they close the door, that's an option. If they can close their door, then they have a better chance of keeping themselves, creating survivable space for themselves in their room. I'm going to show you this video about the difference with the door closed and door open. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to make the bigger, fill the whole screen. Okay. Okay. One. I don't remember what this video was. It's related to the topic, but we'll play it anyway.
Fairfax County 911, where is your emergency?
Hello, there's a fire in my house. Road.
What's on fire?
The kitchen, something in the kitchen. The whole kitchen's on fire right now.
Okay, can you safely get out of the house?
Yes, I can.
All right, just stay outside and we'll have help to you. What's your name?
I'm the son in this house. I was sleeping.
Okay, go ahead and wait outside. I'll get the fire department out there.
That evening, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we were dispatched to a house fire. It was a very cold evening. It was probably somewhere about 10 to 14 degrees.
I was called in by a child, a male.
Usually if a call comes out at that time, it's usually a working fire. So I dressed pretty quickly and head out the door.
Our MCT, the computer, sat there and told all the units that were en route to the fire that everybody was out of the house.
There's one person who's standing in the driveway.
He comes down, meets us, tells us no one's in the house, and he's there by himself, and he thinks the fire's in the kitchen.
And after all the units got on scene, they pulled a hose line. They started masking up to extinguish the fire.
Kyle and I, we were paired up and we went inside.
Myself and Vinny went in ahead of the hose line, the engine crew behind us.
As we were going in, the smoke was real thick, real oily, I guess, for a lack of better words. You couldn't wipe it off your mask.
We did a left-hand search, came to the kitchen area, and the flames started rolling over our heads.
The hose line passes us. They hit an attack on the fire. And Kyle tells me, he said, hey, let's go right. Let's finish the search. He passes me. I grab his shoulder. I say, wait. Do you hear that?
And that's when you could hear her cry out for help.
And as soon as I finish saying that, you can hear her knocking on the door. Help me, somebody help me.
There was no smoke in the room. It was completely clear. She just kind of jumped up into my arms.
So he grabs her, and I instantly went into, let's make a way. So I pushed things out of the way, pushed people out of the way if needed so we could get her out.
Just talk, make sure everything's all right, check it around. And next thing I know, here comes a child being carried out right in front of me, screaming. And I'm going, what just happened here?
There was a lot of chaos going on, and when we heard the radio traffic that they had found somebody inside, I think everybody kind of expected the worst from the conditions, the smoke and the heat.
I noticed that there was no soot on her. She didn't have any signs of smoke inhalation or anything like that. She was just completely clean due to the closed door.
Having that door closed gave us the time to get there and to get the girl out.
She didn't have any marks on her, any soot on her. She closed that door. It's more than proof to me that it works. And even 1 o'clock in the morning, she's sound asleep, and just taking that one action, it saved her life.
Just being able to look at the condition of the house, the kitchen, into the dining room, and then 5 to 6 feet beyond the dining room as to where her door was, seeing the condition of the outside of her door, and then opening the door and looking inside, it's basically a clean room where the whole inside of the house was completely smoke covered, burnt.
So one thing I really took away from this call is how important it is to take this message and kind of share it with the community and my friends and family. Not only close before you doze, but to have working smoke alarms inside and outside of every sleeping area on every floor of the home, to practice your exit plan, to try and get out of the house. But then if you can't get out of the house, close your door and give us that time for the fire department to get there to help you.
So after going on this fire, I've realized what a big impact it can make to shut your door and it can save your life. I think that a lot of kids as well as adults don't realize what a big impact it can make and how it can save your life. So I've been telling my friends and family to close before you doze.
Close before you.
All right, you get the message. So if that can do that for, somebody stuck in when the building's burning, imagine you can now get the importance of why when you enter into the room, when you create that vent and that survivable space, it's so important to get that door closed. So Step 4, you search. No matter what, even if you see a victim, I want to say this again, the first thing you do is isolate the room, which means you shut the door. I'm guessing this is probably true in the home, in the structures in your fire areas, but here in North America, doors are usually on the opposite wall from the windows. It's good to number the walls as a way of keeping yourself in perspective. The entry wall would be wall number 1, and as you move clockwise to the left would be wall 2. The wall opposite is wall 3, and the fourth wall is the wall the last one. So you enter, you close the door, and now you go back you start your search. As you follow along the wall, you want to look behind couches, underneath the beds. You want to keep yourself oriented by keeping yourself one side against the wall, like a leg or a hand. It helps to have something in your other arm that you could swing to tap things, a long pole, an axe, or anything. Make sure that you open closet doors and you look inside there, look under the bed, under furniture, behind furniture, and just keep working around the room. I'm going to skip this video for the sake of time and kind of wrap things up and say, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember the importance of closing the door. And in the spirit of the teaching that I gave at the beginning, of the word of encouragement about the parapets from the book of Deuteronomy, teaching your neighbors, your friends, your family members, your community members about the importance of shutting doors and how that shutting doors can save lives. If you take that away from today's lesson, that will have made this all worthwhile. So let me summarize and wrap this up. This is the VEIS summary. Number 1, you want to do a size up, ideally 360 degrees. But depending on the size of the crew responding, you and your partner might be able to go to what looks like survivable space and prepare to do that while your partner, others in your fire team are doing the 360. Size up the space, size up the building, look at it. Is it, what's its condition? Is there survivable space? Do you have reasons to believe that there's a victim? Address all these issues. And then also you need to ask, do you have the resources to do an entry? You don't want to put yourself or your partner into harm's way if there isn't a backup for you. You don't want to create victims out of yourself. Yes, you're going to take risks, but remember, we risk a lot to save a lot, but we don't risk a lot. We risk little to save little. So if you don't have survivable space, then don't go in, right? So remember, then the steps are, you're going to vent. You're going to have to open up the space. That's inevitable because you can't go in without doing that. So you're going to vent the space. And remember, once you vent the space, you create an airflow in of oxygen. And at the same time, you're going to create an outflow of the hot air and the smoke, which means that your partner who's standing there at the point of entry is now going to be in the flow of hot, smoke and possibly even flames. Enter safely. Check the ground underneath the window. You're checking both for stability of the floor, but also if there's a victim under the floor. Because remember, people get up, they stagger toward the windows, but if they've been overwhelmed by the smoke, they might pass out there. Enter in safely so that you don't dislodge any of your air, hurt yourself, or dislodge your BA. And then once you're in, even if there's a victim that you could get to, make a beeline to the door to close it off so that you reduce the airflow. Then do your search. Our searches are generally left-handed searches, meaning we go in and we keep the left arm or left leg up against the wall as much as we can, because we have to work around obstacles like furniture, and we do the circle going around. So that's essentially a clockwise search of the room. And it helps to have something that could extend into the middle of the room so that you can make sure that there's no victims in that space that if you can't see them. So that's my VEIS presentation for you, so that it sort of relates to the search and rescue that was scheduled, but I don't know what he was planning. And I do want to conclude with two thoughts. One is as a repeat. I've already repeated a bunch of times, but the value of repetition. Closing doors is critical. It's critical for you as the firefighter entering into searching a survivable space, but it's really, really, really important to teach people that to sleep with their doors closed, to create safer space for them in the event of a fire in their place. And finally, I always love to finish with this quote. It comes from Kurt Wagenbach. He's a Vermont state trooper, which is like a state police officer. He's retired. I heard him speak about a really terrible incident that he was involved with. And this is what he said. He said, "We don't rise to the occasion. We fall back on our training." And so I want to thank all of you for being here today, for training, learning. You help me train by making me have to think about what I would like to teach and what I could teach and what I can offer you. And you additionally challenge me because I have to think, I'm thinking about teaching firefighters who fight fires in different countries, and everything is different. What's not different is fire. And so we're all fighting the same kind of fire, but the environment in which we fight it is different. And so it makes me think differently about firefighting and fire training. So friends, that was my pinch hitting on short notice. I hope that I hope that you found it informative under the circumstances. And I will be teaching. I'm teaching again soon. I'm looking at the